Despite its childish and wildly immature nature, Talking with Dinosaurs is not intended for children. It has blasphemy, sweary words, sexy talk, and bad, bad thoughts. It is for entertainment purposes only, and while care has been taken to keep information as accurate as possible, paleontology is an ever-growing field with new data and theories constantly changing how we see these prehistoric monsters. We can make no guarantees about accuracy. Not that it matters, paleontologists are just making it all up as they go along anyway. And also, Mum, I'm still very, very sorry. Dinosaurs. They've captured the imaginations of children and weirdos for generations. But do we know anything about them? I mean, really? I mean, kind of, I guess. I don't know. It's not like I'm the host of some kind of comedy dinosaur podcast with a very dubious Podcast of the Year accolade or something. I heard those podcasts are dreadful, and the only thing worse than the hosts are the dreadful listeners. No taste. Wait, I am the host of some kind of comedy dinosaur podcast with a very dubious Podcast of the Year accolade? Well, shit. Pretend I didn't say any of that, I guess. Well, in that case, welcome to Talking with Dinosaurs, the podcast that was generously described as almost science adjacent, I guess. Which I think is pretty much the pop science equivalent of the Nobel Prize. Take that, I fucking love science. I'll be selling out to clickbait in no time. Speaking of which, if you're joining us from the clickbait hashtag fake news mower claw image I shared on Instagram last week, welcome. I think a lot of people thought it was real, which unfortunately made it by far my most popular post ever. Yay, I'm part of the problem! Okay, well, since this is a dinosaur podcast, and I haven't talked about an actual dinosaur on the show literally all year, I think I should probably get back on that big, beautiful dinosaur train. And I did decide to go big. Like, the biggest. Well, biggest on land. But we had that argument a couple of episodes back on the Megalodon episode. We don't need to go over it again. But these guys were definitely bigger than anything ever. Except maybe the blue whale. I mean, we can't be sure. It was a long time ago. I speak, of course, of the mighty sauropods, the long necks, the Titanosaurs in particular. While not as famous as their brachiosaurid cousins, they also didn't have stupid names like Giraffatitan. Yes, there was a dinosaur called the Giraffatitan. Yes, it means great big giraffe. No, it's not a euphemism for my penis. It's kind of disappointing that the name was used for a brachiosaurid, because it was actually an ancestor of the rhinoceros called Paraceratherium that looked like a buff as fuck giraffe. Like, it was diesel. You know Carrot Top? It makes modern Carrot Top look like Carrot Top Classic. Or it makes Vin Diesel look like the D&D playing nerd that he is deep down in his heart. Come on, Vin, stop ignoring my emails. Come play with me. I wrote a campaign just for you. You can be a half-orc. And it's cool. Anyway, I was talking about Titanosaurs, wasn't I? Where was I? Big old sauropods, probably the largest creatures to ever walk the earth. Oh yeah, that's it. Titanosaurs were the last of the sauropods, living from about 136 million years ago until about 65 million years ago. The KP event, the extinction of the dinosaurs, or as it's more honestly called, the day everything I ever loved died. Well, except my cat, and my mum, and my fiancé, and Nick Kershaw's 1984 hit The Riddle, best of 80s synth pop, but it somehow only made it to number 6 on the New Zealand charts? It's cheated, that's disgusting. What? I got distracted again? Sorry. Titanosaurs, as I may have mentioned a couple of times, were pretty big. One species, Patagotitan, has been estimated to be as large as 37 metres long, or 121 feet, which I only use because it sounds way bigger than metres. Patagotitan is believed to be the single largest land creature of all time. Other titanosaurs weren't exactly small either. Dreadnoughtus, Argentinosaurus, Alamosaurus, and many other titanosaurs were so long it can be really difficult to comprehend the size just by telling you. To make it easier, imagine 4 buses lined up, one after the other. No, long ways, not width ways. Why must explain the concept of context every time? I'm sorry, English is such a crap language, it's not my fault, okay? Just get used to it. Now, Titanosaurs were pretty widespread, having been found on every continent on Earth, even Antarctica. Even little old New Zealand, which I waxed lyrical about the piss-poor fossil record for land creatures last week, has its very own titanosaur vertebra, found in Hawke's Bay. I mean, that's about all we've got, one vertebra, but we got it. And I mean, to be fair, it's a pretty big vertebra. It's not like one of the big ones in its back, but it's the size of like a big rock. You know what wasn't big about titanosaurs, though? Their eggs. Well, they were bigger than, say, chicken eggs. They were only about 5 inches in diameter. When you take on account that the humble kiwi, New Zealand's dweeby little national bird, has eggs the same size, that's just crazy. I mean, lucky titanosaur mothers, but terribly, terribly unlucky kiwi mothers. I mean, it's a pretty absurd comparison, considering titanosaurs could be up to 800 times the size of the wee brown Karibo look-alike. At least one species of titanosaurs, the Saltosaurus, would gather in herds and lay the eggs in groups of up to 25 at a time. We know this because multiple nesting sites have been found all over the world, complete with tiny fossilized dinosaur embryos. So cute and depressing. This evidence of herd behavior, plus the fact that Saltosaurus has massive osteoderms, the Ankylosaurus-style bony plates on its back, shows that they were probably well equipped to deal with any desperate predators, like a Bellosaurus, Gondwana's answer to the Tyrannosaurus. We also found a piece of one of these in New Zealand. Wow, I think we've covered New Zealand's entire Mesozoic era terrestrial fossil record in this episode. Anyway, I think it's time to give the colossal Titanosaurs a rating. It's too big to give a rating out of 10, so I'll give them an 83,364,223 out of 100 million. Now that is an impressive score for an impressive group. Now, onto our Jurassic jigsaws. Alright, let's get into it. Woo! First question. How the fuck do you say Diplodocus? That's from Mick, who has a Diplodocus dilemma in Dunedin. Well, Mick, say it however the fuck you like. Officially, it's supposed to be Diplodocus, because that's how the discoverer pronounced it. But, fuck it. You conveyed the meaning. Language is a tool to convey meaning. It's fine. If anyone gets lippy about it, feed them to a flock of Compsognathus. The dicks? Okay, question 2. This one comes from Aspen Drake, host of the Lost for Words podcast, a podcast about grief and how people deal with it. A subject that might actually help people instead of just New Zealand inside jokes and dinosaur genitalia. Anyway, Aspen's question. Do we have any idea what dinosaurs smelled like? I wish you would phrase this question as, how did dinosaurs smell? Because that would really set up the, with their noses, answer that I desperately wanted to use. Because deep down, I am a terrible, unapologetic hack. On a slightly more serious note, we don't really have any possible way to know what dinosaurs smelt like. I tried to research what modern birds of prey smell like, due to their similarity to theropods, but Google only wanted to tell me if birds can smell, not what they smell like. Thankfully, I guess, when I was on Rakiura last week, a kariru, New Zealand's native wood pigeon, got spooked when I walked past the bush and flew directly into my face. Since I got a full huff of big old birdie, I can comfortably say that birds smell terrible, and so dinosaurs probably did too. Carnivorous ones probably had fairly poor dental hygiene, so their mouths probably smelt like death. I can only imagine herbivores smelling like, cows and elephants, so they probably just smelt like farts. So to sum it up, dinosaurs as a whole probably smelled a lot like me. Right, that's all I've got for tonight. I do have something to ask of you though. Don't worry, I haven't started a Patreon or anything yet. I don't expect you to give me money. But as I mentioned frequently throughout this episode, New Zealand's fossil situation is pretty lacking. We have some, but we don't have a huge amount of our own dinosaur fossils, so we only have a couple of proper dinosaur exhibits in the museums around the whole country. The Jurassic Museum is currently hoping to change that. It plans to be a full dinosaur museum in New Plymouth, housing a T-Rex, Triceratops and many others. This is the sort of place I dreamed of going to my whole life, and I would love for future generations of little Kiwis to be inspired by these exhibits. If you'd like to support this endeavour and encouraging children into science, go to kck.st/2CRV6SL or Google the Jurassic Museum Kickstarter. The Kickstarter runs until March 12th, but don't wait. Donate now. Yeah, while you listen to this. I'm not going to wait, but you can listen and donate at the same time. I mean, it's not hard. If you can't financially support it, I understand that. I'm pretty poor myself. A Facebook share or a retweet could really help. This is normally where I'd ask you to like and share my podcast on Twitter and Facebook, iTunes or whatever, but if you can share this instead, that would actually be great. I'd really like to make it clear that they are no way sponsoring this podcast. It's just something that I really believe in. Please. It may take me 18 hours to drive there to see it, plus a ferry over the Cook Strait, but it's something I think that needs to exist. If you do share it or donate to it, please let me know, and I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Speaking of shout outs, thanks to Aspen from Lost for Words, check it out. It's definitely worth a listen, especially if grief is something you're dealing with at the moment. I'd also like to give a shout out to People Are Wild, a brand new medical podcast, which I just got the notification that episode 2 has come online while I record this. Episode 1 had me in tears with the harrowing tale of a survivor of the Oklahoma bombings, so I can't wait to edit this episode down so I can listen to that one. Also, I'd like to thank Matt and Hayley for sending me more questions, even if Matt's one had already been asked. You're lucky I love you, Matt. Anyway, I'm out of here. Inohora. I've been Stefan Ato, and we've been Talking with Dinosaurs.